Welcome, everybody. I'm Neil Cavuto, and Republicans might be big on it, but when it comes to this Benghazi investigation, count Democrats out of it. Now to the rep who is ready to rip.
When I was leading troops in Iraq in 2006, men and women who were being shot at and blown up by al-Qaeda, where was the outrage as they fundraised endlessly off the Iraq war? Where was the outrage as they viciously attacked our commanders? Where was the outrage when they said that soldiers were war criminals? Where was the outrage when they said the war was lost? Where was the outrage when they said that only high school dropouts joined the Army? Forgive me if I don't join my Democratic colleagues in sharing in their fake outrage. 4 Americans lost their lives that night in Benghazi. They deserve justice. The American people deserve the truth. One other lesson I learned in the Army is we leave no man behind, and we will not leave these 4 men behind.
Whoa. In a first on Fox, Arkansas Republican Congressman, Senate candidate Tom Cotton on what he calls the Democrats' double standard. Congressman, wow, that certainly got a lot of folks' attention on both sides. What have you heard from Democrats?
Well, Neil, I can tell you that a lot of my Democratic colleagues didn't like me calling out their hypocrisy, but having sat on the floor and listened to the debate, the Democrats were simply politicizing this matter. The investigation into Benghazi shouldn't be a partisan matter. Republicans have participated in similar committees in the past related to Iran-Contra or Watergate. Democrats should be participating fully on this committee. Yet rather, they went to the House floor and were attacking Republicans for turning this into a political spectacle. Well, I remember what it was like in 2006. I was patrolling with my men in the streets of Baghdad, and there was lots of Democrats at the time who were raising money off the Iraq war, who were campaigning on the Iraq war, who were saying some pretty mean stuff about soldiers and our leaders, and no Democrats were calling them out at the time for making it a political matter.
You know, Congressman, there are many who are saying the same, some in your party who have a double standard on this very issue, who at the time, when Democrats were criticizing Iraq war intelligence, weren't saying much, but now they're making a big issue of it. Is it fair to say some Republicans are being just as hypocritical?
Well, Neil, it's fair to always make the conduct of our foreign policy and national security an issue for public debate, whether we have a Democratic president or a Republican president. But there's a way you can do that in a respectful manner and point out the failures or the perceived failures of a president and his administration without going to the House floor and condemning your colleagues for it.
You know, sir, I'm wondering what would happen if Democrats sat out sitting on this panel altogether? In other words, a special committee is assigned to look into this, and not a single Democrat sits on it. Doesn't that doom its findings, whatever they are?
Neil, I think that would be a very regrettable decision by the Democrats, and I know many of the rank-and-file Democrats don't want to boycott the Benghazi committee. But if they did, I suspect that Chairman Trey Gowdy, a very skilled and experienced prosecutor, would proceed with the authority granted with him. And frankly, most of the answers are going to come from documents that the administration, especially the White House and the State Department, have been withholding. And documents tell the truth. That's not a partisan matter. Republicans and Democrats can't disagree once the documents are available. We just learned last week, though, that the White House and the State Department continued to withhold documents. So I hope that they participate in the committee, and I hope that we get to the truth in a quick and nonpartisan manner.
Nevertheless, Congress, you raise a number of very valid and very forceful points here, but this whole committee comes back to Democrats saying it's a waste of time. I want you to listen to just what some of them have said.
Diversion, subterfuge. Benghazi, Benghazi, Benghazi. Why aren't we talking about something else?
I don't think people, Americans, Democrat or Republicans, are going to sleep over Benghazi. And I really think that they're concerned about the economy and jobs and immigration.
They're politicizing this process for no gain for anyone, and certainly not the families of the victims.
The fact is this is a stunt. This is a political stunt.
What you're saying, Congressman, is the way they're reacting is a political stunt, right?
Yes, Neil, they're trying to distract attention away from the very serious questions that we have, like why wasn't there greater security in Benghazi given the threat environment? What was happening during the attacks? And most importantly, why was there an immediate cover-up in the aftermath of the attacks that continues to this day? Arkansans, and I suspect most Americans, care very deeply when 4 Americans are murdered at one of our consulates by an al-Qaeda affiliate. And we need to get to the bottom of all the circumstances surrounding it. And I think most rank-and-file Democrats, to include all the Democrats I represent in Arkansas, agree, notwithstanding what people like Nancy Pelosi might say.
Congressman, if they find those terrorists who who did this, who killed these 4 Americans, would you then be satisfied?
Well, that's the first step to getting justice for the 4 murdered Americans and their families. But we also have to know what failures led to this developments in Benghazi on the night of September 11th and the cover-ups afterwards, so we can avoid similar attacks on consulates and embassies around the world, and we can also hold anyone accountable if they did anything wrong.
You know, we don't know so much about who knew what and when. What we do know, Congressman, is the day after these attacks, the president went to a campaign fundraising event in Las Vegas. And we do know that was the same time he was criticizing then presidential candidate Mitt Romney for making political hay out of this whole incident. At the very least, it didn't look good. I'm wondering your view on this sort of thing. When an American diplomat dies abroad, do you think there should be a moratorium on political activity, and certainly to this day, political fundraising off it?
Neil, I'm frankly less concerned about what the president did the day after the attacks, once the situation was stabilized, than what he did the night of the attacks. We just learned, for instance, last week from one of the president's former senior advisors that he wasn't in the Situation Room. I learned in the Army that one critical element of leadership is supervising your orders and adjusting them as the situation calls for. The president wasn't in the Situation Room. How did he know if his orders were being executed? How did he know if they were delivering all possible means to secure the scene in Benghazi? I think that's a failure of leadership, and I think we need answers about why that's the case.
Then real quickly, sir, on Republicans who might try to fundraise off of this, your thoughts?
Neil, I won't do that, but every Republican and Democrat alike has to determine how they're going to conduct their campaigns and also how they're going to approach this matter. I think it's a serious matter that calls for a nonpartisan investigation so we can get to the bottom of the truth. All
right. Now, you're a gentleman and you're not going to rip your own colleagues here, but you're also a war hero. And you're also seeing how some on both sides are politicizing with this, Republicans too. Do you find that offensive to fundraise off of this either way?
Neil, first off, let me correct you on something. I'm not a war hero. I did my duty like hundreds of thousands of Americans did their duty. The people who are heroes are the people who laid down their lives in Iraq and Afghanistan or places like Benghazi. So I appreciate your kind words, but I don't consider myself a war hero. Again, I can only control my campaign and the way I conduct myself in office, and that's what I plan to do.
Okay, I'm going to be obnoxious. You put your life on the line. To me, that makes you a hero. You're modest. I'm not. So I'll ask you again. Republicans or Democrats say are just as offensive, trying to capitalize on this by fundraising off of this. You personally said you wouldn't do that. But what are you saying about those who do?
Neil, that's a decision they all make for themselves. Again,
okay.
my particular complaint yesterday with my Democratic colleagues was a hypocrisy for criticizing Republicans for making this a political issue as compared to the way they politicized the war in Iraq.
Fair enough. Congressman Cotton, thank you very, very much.